Hey, this is Bobby Grow. Welcome to another Always Reforming podcast. I just wanted to briefly touch on a chapter I'm reading in David Kelsey's new book titled Human Anguish and God's Power. I was hoping it would be more up my alley than it is, but it's not turning out to be what I had hoped it to be, so I don't know if it was money sort of not well spent. But anyway, I've come across a kind of clarifying paragraph as to why I don't really like what he's having to say. So I'm going to read this paragraph. This is going to be a short, really short little podcast because I'm just going to read the paragraph and give a quick word on why it's problematic theologically. So let me read Kelsey, quote, "Indeed, it is seriously problematic to hold that the end to which God blesses creatively, God's purpose or intent in creating, just is creation's full actualization, as creation in an eschatological consummation. If it were, of course, God relating in creative blessing would indeed entail God also relating in eschatological blessing. In all self-consistency, God would necessarily have to draw all that God creates to eschatological consummation. Creating would be no more than, and to be sure no less than, the promise of eschatological consummation. God relating in eschatological blessing would be just another way of characterizing God's relating in creative blessing. That thesis is problematic, however, because of what it implies about realities other than God. Creatures whose history of interactions constitute the postulated process leading up to eschatological consummation. It implies that none of those realities, including ourselves, are fully actual creatures yet. For creation will not be actualized until its full eschatological consummation. It further implies an instrumentalist view of whatever it is we actually are in every here and now. Disposable stages in a cosmic process in which whatever is actual now is simply the necessary preconditions for the following stages of the process and ultimately the preconditions for the final full actualization of creation. We might be potential human creatures, but we are not yet actual human creatures. And if not yet actualized creatures, we would not have the dignity of which fully actualized creatures require an unqualified respect. That is morally very problematic." That is David Kelsey, pages 156 through 157 in his book, Human Anguish and God's Power. And so that really strikes me as problematic because he is speaking about humanity vis-a-vis his two different categories of creative blessing and eschatological blessing. He's speaking of humanity under those terms in an abstract way. So when he speaks about being potentially human or potential creatures or actualized humans, actualized creatures, and he correlates those to creative blessing and eschatological blessing, respectively, what he is doing is not thinking about humanity in and from what the Apostle Paul says is humanity's image, that Christ as the Imago Dei, as the image of God, Colossians 1:15, Christ as the Imago Dei is the firstborn from all creation, that he is the recreated reality, that eschatological blessing is creative blessing, that it is actualized humanity, that we are actualized humans even in this in-between time, even as we are in the simul et justus et peccator, as we are simultaneously justified and sinners. I said that wrong. I added one extra et there. We are simultaneously justified and sinners, as Luther popularized that phrase and that concept. So Kelsey is just doing kind of like the classical Augustinian dualistic exercise in thinking about humanity in abstraction from humanity's ground and the reality in Jesus Christ. So it is that we are experiencing eschatological blessing even in the now, while we are waiting for the not yet to become the consummate reality. So there is a continuity then, if we're going to use Kelsey's categories of creative blessing and eschatological blessing. There is a continuity between those two insofar as Jesus is the center and reality that bridges, so to speak, the reality of the now and the not yet in himself. And in fact, the not yet is what defines the now in inaugurated and yet actualized form. So that's my critique against Kelsey. He's not thinking about humanity, a theological anthropology properly. He's not thinking about it Christologically or from a Christ-conditioned point of reference as us evangelical Calvinists, as I now call myself an Athanasian Reformed thinker, does. And so, to me, it really negates all of his work in this book. I mean, that's not to say he can't offer good insights that I can't learn from still, but at a very fundamental level, at a prolegomenal level, a theological, methodological level, it really undercuts, I think, the ultimate value of what he's attempting to do in this work. So, anyway, that's just a small critique, but a big critique at the same time. So, thanks. See you next time.